Welcome to another episode of Real Estate Investing Explained. Here's today's question. I've heard you mention a few times that you think you're wealthier than a billionaire because of a concept called time wealth. Of course, that first line, really caught my attention. I'm sure it will with the listeners. So first, what is time wealth? What do you mean by that? And how does it make you wealthier than a billionaire?
Well, billionaires have obligations to things that I don't. And so I'm in Playa del Carmen for the next couple of months. I don't have to do anything that I don't want to do. And maybe they don't have to do anything that they don't want to do, but the likelihood that they're willing to take 2 months off is not high. So many people are chasing materialism and attached to the prestigious status symbols, whether that be fancy cars or mansions and things like that. But I just mentioned that Russell Simmons and I worked out at the same gym in Bali, and from 2 to 4 p.m., he and I were doing exactly the same thing. He's in his 60s now, so he wants to stay fit and stay active and eat well and build relationships with people. And what that illustrated to me was that it doesn't matter if you have hundreds of millions of dollars or if you have, just the little money that I have. What's important is universal. And it just, of course, it takes a lot of money to get to Bali. But once you're there, what we're after, or what it seems to me that we should be after, is time, because there wasn't a happier person in Bali than, from my vantage point, than me and him. So, I just think that most billionaires don't have it that way. You own a bunch of things, and then, of course, those things end up owning you. So I am trying to disencumber myself from things as much as possible so that I can focus on that which brings me the most joy. And that is the things that I just mentioned: staying fit and active and building relationships and seeing the world and those sort of things.
Yeah, it's such an interesting idea. And I don't think it's one that people think about it that way very often. That's why I like the idea so much. And it just, when you take the time and listen to you talk about that, it just makes so much sense, right? People are doing all these things so that they could get to what you're getting at, but then they don't realize what they're building actually is taking away more of their time. And so I think people need to be more proactive about building the type of life they want and giving them that time freedom, and exactly what you talked about.
Well, something else I like to talk about is the different perspective of America that I have from being outside of it. If you're having coffee in La Paz, Bolivia, one of the things you notice is that most people don't have cars, and the cars that you do see are nothing like the cars that you see driving around Houston, which are fancy Lexuses and cars that were built within the last couple of years that are so nice that these people that are driving them around probably pay somewhere between $500 and $1,500 a month for these cars, but it doesn't add one bit of happiness to your life. But I would guarantee you that those people who are driving those fancy cars have more nights at 11 p.m. when they're stressed out, worried about an email from their boss or their subordinates, that the people in Bolivia don't have. And so I just think that a lot of times, much of the self-inflicted stress that we experience in America is all so that we can raise the standard of living of everyone, so that we can all drive a little bit fancier of a car. And the average square foot of a house the average square footage was about 12 to 1,400 square feet 25 years ago, or let's say when I was born, maybe 35 years ago. Nowadays, it's doubled. Do you think happiness has doubled? Not even close, right? But fancy cars, big houses, no increase in happiness level. But in Bolivia, those people smiled more than my multimillionaire friends in the States. It's just amazing to see. I mean, I have been to places in this world where people live on less than $2 a day. They eat a staple food called enshima, which is like a porridge. They eat that twice a day. And I'm talking about sub-Saharan Africa. And those people smile just as much as my friends in America. How is that possible? So I just think that we're stressed out, we're anxious. And if we stopped and thought about it, we could mitigate a lot of that stress and anxiety if we were just more deliberate in how we go about our lives. And alluding to what we talked about earlier in being deliberate, if you tracked your expenses, you would realize that you're spending money that you don't have to spend. And so you could have time wealth too if you were just a little more deliberate about your lifestyle. Because I promise you, if you make more than $34,000, you're in the top 1% of income earners in the entire world. And I would bet that more than 99% of people listening are making double that, if not much more. You're part of the richest humans that have ever walked the face of the earth, the best thing that money can do is buy time. Because when you get to the end of this life, it's not more money that you're going to wish that you had. It's not more time in the office that you're going to wish that you had. So these are things that we have to grapple with now. This is why you set aside time at the end of the year on December 31st and think about what it is that you want the next year to look like. You think about what it is that you want the rest of your life to look like. And then you start making plans to make that happen. And all I can say is that it's worth it.
I think here in the States, it's probably an expectation thing, keeping up with the Joneses, and just really what other people think of you. I don't think other parts of the world that you've mentioned, I don't think it really matters as much. Whereas here with social media and just everything that's available to us, other people's opinions count more than what we think about ourselves. And that leads to making decisions. And again, I'm going to butcher the quote, but it's something along the lines of we buy things we can't afford to impress people that we don't even like, or something along those lines. And I think America's, and maybe parts of Europe, but mostly America, is only parts of the world that do those types of things.
That's very true. And there's a way to combat it though. And it's what we've been talking about with journaling. When you journal and you focus on becoming the best version of yourself, you become genuinely content with your life. And when you become genuinely content with your life, you could not care less what other people think about you.
That's all for this episode of Real Estate Investing Explained. Be sure to follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, or subscribe to our YouTube channel to get even more free content.